Hello, and thanks for joining us for a Christian Viewpoint. We have here today with us, this is the first time since your big primary win, we have Jerrod Sessler, hopefully our next congressman from this district. And Jerrod, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Skip.
And today, I don't know if I want to get right to questions or if I want to just do a little celebrating.
Yeah,
Maybe we should have some balloons coming down and some party favors.
Yeah, get up and dance.
I'm looking at these numbers, and last night or yesterday was the final day of counting. And boy, Jerrod, you ended up with over 33%. And our incumbent, Dan Newhouse, ended up with less than 25%. And Tiffany is at close to 20. I need to first tell you, it's hard. I kind of feel like the Fonz. Remember the Happy Days? Remember the Fonz?
Oh, yeah.
Remember when Fonz couldn't say he was wrong? You know, it was, I was well, I thought about this and I was wrong. You know, I've been following. In fact, we were talking earlier. My wife and I, helped run Doc's campaign, Doc Hastings, back in '90 and '92 when we lost to Inslee in '90 and then won in '92. And I thought I knew this area really well. In fact, Karen and I usually are within a percent or two, and we figured Smiley and Newhouse and you, we figured Smiley 2021, Newhouse 24. Where we were wrong is we thought you would be in the 2021 and we thought a Democrat would be like White last time up in the 25. So first of all, the Democrat getting 14, the state rep, was shocking to me. And 33 for you, I mean, I know God moves and I know he was helped. I mean, I know he answers prayer, but boy, congratulations. 33% against a well-funded incumbent is pretty impressive.
Yeah, combined they spent over $1 million, and we spent maybe 20% of that. And so it's totally
sounds like Trump,
totally,
how he always gets outspent. Yes,
it's totally God. Yeah, it's amazing. I'll also say I'm an engineer.
Yep.
And so I always run the numbers on everything that's going on and try to figure out where we're going to be. And our prayer and our belief was that we were going to get to 31%.
Yep.
And it was kind of interesting. I'll give you a little bit of backstory, but that night when the results were coming out, we saw the initial drop, and it was pretty good. We were 4 or 5 points ahead, and it was encouraging. But that's the initial drop. You don't really know how it's going to go, and then they have multiple more drops that night, and then the days go on, and it just kept getting better. But that night, somebody, and this was not out of line because it's public information, but somebody from inside one of the counties, one of the more significant counties, text me a picture of what the results were at that point at that county, and it was 32%. And I knew right then, I said, we are going to win this, because I knew if a big county had us over 30, that was going to be really good. But I mean, it was awesome because it was interesting. We got President Trump's endorsement a few months ago, and the week or two leading up to the primary, President Trump's team became very nervous about the race because they just didn't know where it was at. Right. And
is this prior to Tiffany getting in?
No, it was after she got in, and it was actually somewhat as a result of that. So basically, I messaged them. Because we're now in contact with President Trump's team quite often. But what people have to realize is, we've been working at this for 3.5 years now. We have over 1,200 volunteers across 8 counties, from Oregon to Canada. I mean, we are covering, and I've been working full time, and not just 40 hours a week. We've been really hitting the ball out of the court, just doing a lot. And I would say this is a movement of the people within Washington's 4th District. We're putting a stake. Yeah, we're putting a stake in the ground for Washington right here in Central Washington, that the rest of the state can rally around. We've got technology that's never been used in campaigning before. We've got support, grassroots support that I have never seen in politics before in the United States. I mean, we have a movement here that I believe is going to be the catalyst for turning Washington State, and I want to be a part of that. But what happened was, a few days before the election, I sent this message to President Trump's team, and I actually prayed about this because I was like, man, I don't know if I want to share these numbers. I've never shared them with anybody before. But I told him where I felt like the race was going to land, and I gave him, basically we had some ranges, and I put myself at 31 to 33%.
Right.
Newhouse was at 23 to 25%, and we put Tiffany Smiley at 17 to 19%.
So you hit them all right.
And if you look at the results, it's exactly where they were. And I mean, that was just, there was some thought. Obviously, again, I'm an engineer, so I know how to look at numbers and try to figure it out. I knew that the Democrats were not going to make it through the primary because there was 4 of them. And so they were going to break up the vote between each other. So I knew it was going to be 2 of the 3 of us were going to make it through. And so anyway, that's kind of some backstory with that. But we're just very happy. One way to look at this is, basically 77% of the voters in the district chose someone other than Dan Newhouse.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting the vast majority of those votes. And I think it was, because of the grassroots movement, because of President Trump's support and help, and ultimately just, I think people want a true conservative. They want somebody that loves Jesus. They want somebody that's going to fight for us and our constitutional values, and that's what I'm willing to do.
And if you think about it, he spent more money than all the other candidates combined, and he is the incumbent. Right. And he got 23 or 24% of the vote. I mean, Dan, that's a message. I mean, wow, that's really something. And the Tiffany Smiley, I mean, I got to tell you this. Since the election, I've had a few appointments with clients. I go to the Y a lot. I have a lot, I run into people, and I'm trying to find people that voted for Tiffany. I just walk up to people and talk, and I'm up to in the 30s now. Every night I tell my wife when I've ran into somebody else, but I'm up into the 30s now of people that voted for Tiffany. And every single one, 100%, without hesitation, well, of course we're voting for Sessler. Well, of course we're voting.
That's great.
It's every single one. I can't find so far. Again, I'm in the 30s now. 2 guys at the Y yesterday. I can't find anybody that, and if you would not have, if it would have been Tiffany and I would vote for Tiffany.
Right.
I'm for you in many ways more than Tiffany.
Yeah.
But my goodness, that's an anti-Newhouse vote. And
totally,
so 77% of this district doesn't want Dan.
Yeah.
And so, I can't imagine the Democrats, the Democrats that do cross the line and vote are going to vote for him, obviously.
Some of them, yeah.
Most of them. But a lot of them are going to sit it out too. I couldn't vote last time. I mentioned to you last election when it was White, the Democrat, and Newhouse. I almost voted for White. That's how strongly I'm against the things that Newhouse has done. But I couldn't get myself as a loyal Republican to pull that thing for a D. And you're going to see that.
I know, we talked about it. We talked about it at the time. And yeah, I do believe the majority, if not all the people that voted for Tiffany Smiley will come to me. And even though it's an election, right? But I mean, I think in general, I think that Tiffany and I were basically on the same team. She didn't feel like that I had the momentum to win, and that was her reasoning for getting in the race. And I have a ton of respect for her. No one helped her more in her Senate race in Eastern Washington than our team. The team Sessler, we were 100% behind her, and so have a ton of respect for her family and obviously her husband and their situation. So. We would definitely expect, most of those people to come to me. And I mean, the difference really is, Dan Newhouse is running on his record, which is basically an empty bucket. So he doesn't have the right to say, I'm going to do X, because he's spent basically his life in politics and he doesn't have a whole lot in his bucket to brag about. And so I'm at an advantage in that standpoint because we have hope, we have an opportunity to actually do some things, and I've actually got, substantive ideas from my years in business and raising kids and just living a great American life.
Jerrod, you're the perfect example of what the founders had in mind. The founders didn't have in mind people like Joe Biden that get into politics in their early 20s right out of college, and they make a career, the career politicians, and they become multi-gazillionaires. it was supposed to be a sacrifice. It
Right.
was engineers and insurance guys and school
Right,
teachers
yeah.
and businessmen and women would go and, you know, they would pay for their food and to house them, but they weren't, you know, given all these massive benefits and salaries.
Yeah.
So most of them couldn't afford to serve more than a term or two because they had to get back
Yeah,
to Dodge.
I totally-
and to run
totally agree. And
that's what
yeah.
so that's why the Trumps of the world and the Jerrod Sesslers
Yeah.
that are, you know, successful
Yeah.
in business and then say, I'm going to do this now.
Yeah.
God bless you. And that's what the founders had.
And people don't realize this, but you know, Dan Newhouse went into Congress as one of the least wealthy people, and he is now ranked in the top 25 wealthiest people.
Yeah.
And if you look at his public financial reports, there's just dozens and dozens of stock trade accounts and all this stuff, and it's like, I made a commitment to the American people. I sold my stock. I am not in the stock market. I will not be in the stock market as a congressman. And if I get what I consider to be insider information, I will tweet it so that everybody has it.
Okay.
Because I don't.
that's
That's
awesome.
not,
I mean, that's-
my reason for doing this. I don't think that people should get into public office to try to find success. I think it's really sad if people actually do that.
That's not what the founders wanted. No.
It's a place of service.
Yep.
To live is as Christ, and to die as gain. But what is it to live is as Christ? I think Christ is exemplified by two things: He served and He suffered.
Yep.
And I think in public service, you're going to serve and you're going to suffer, and that's the endurance that God gives you. Then, you know, I look forward to serving, finding someone better than me, in, you know, helping them get elected, and then I can come home and get back to business.
Right, right. And we do want to talk about some of the things that you're going to, you know, take with you to D.C. But I do want to just touch on why this came about, why you got in, why Tiffany ran,
Right.
why I became so opposed to Dan Newhouse. Just want to remind people why for a minute. One of them is, and a lot of people don't know this, but when Roe v. Wade was finally overturned,
The Disrespect for Marriage Act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He couldn't wait to join a bunch of Democrats and co-sponsor, run out and support the codify homosexual marriage. Because on the left, they felt that because Roe v. Wade was overturned, that this radical right-wing Supreme Court was then going to go and, you know, get rid of, you know, homosexual rights and marriage and all these other things. So it showed where Dan stands on marriage. He voted he supported to codify that immediately. One of the only Republicans that did that. Codify homosexual marriage. So it was the law of the land. So that shows where he's at there. He also funded several times. He voted to fund Planned Parenthood.
That's right.
So you call yourself pro-life and you call yourself pro-family, Dan Newhouse, and you vote to give Planned Parenthood billions, the #1 abortion provider of murdering babies in America. You vote to codify homosexual marriage.
Yeah, and don't lose sight of the fact that Planned Parenthood has also developed basically a supply chain for body parts that they're taking from those children that they're aborting.
Disgusting.
It's terrible.
He voted, as everybody knows, the big vote that people know about is to impeach Trump. Sometimes you don't hear people talk about the other one to me that's so important. He voted for the January 6th Commission.
Right.
Jerrod, the January 6th Commission, that is why right now, over 3 years later, you have dozens and dozens of innocent, patriotic Americans that did nothing but peacefully and patriotic that are still in prison.
That's right.
They have died there. They've been treated worse than Arab terrorists in prison. They've died there. They've been abused there. They've been pulled. You have fathers that have been pulled away from children. You have kids whose parents are out here just heartbroken because their kids are still there. All these humans suffering, these patriots, because of Dan Newhouse voting for that January 6th Commission.
I was in D.C., I've said this before, but I mean, I was in D.C. on January 6th, so I saw what happened. And, you know, coming back after that and seeing my congressman, you know, vote for impeachment of President Trump. I mean, that was a huge blow, but that's not all he's done.
So you were there.
I was
you
there.
Actually
I actually saw
this.
what happened. Yeah, I mean,
you saw the police telling the people to come in.
Yeah, oh yeah, and then you know, Capitol Police throwing concussion bombs into crowds of innocent people with elderly and children, and
a lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah,
either.
a lot. I mean, there's so much stuff as over time, then this whole pipe bomb thing. Did you hear? I don't know if you saw the latest on that. Just recently, they have video that shows DC policemen
planting.
It was either Capitol or DC police planted the pipe bomb at the DNC, and they show them getting out of the car, going.
Didn't see that on CNN.
Yeah, you don't see that stuff, and it's like, look, this whole thing was a setup to cover up a stolen election.
Of course,
and the reason why those patriots are still sitting in jail is because they cannot let go of that. Because if they did let go of it, it would be like an admission that the whole thing was a setup and it was all rigged to cover a fraudulent election. And there's more and more evidence that continues to come out that shows that, and people are just refusing to look at it.
And
generally.
to blame Donald Trump, I mean, anybody who watches all the whole video, quit watching CNN and MSNBC and ABC, CBS. Don't watch that garbage. Trump was peacefully and patriotically protest.
Let our voices be heard.
Let our voices be heard.
It doesn't say pick up sticks and stones. It says let our voices be heard. That's the First Amendment. We have the right
let me
to do
tell you
that.
something. If I had voted for that January 6th commission, and I don't know if Dan Newhouse obviously didn't know that these people were going to be sitting in prison and jail and suffering for all this time. But if I had voted for that, I would be asking forgiveness. I would write a letter. I would personally write a letter to every one of those families, of those people, men and women, that are sitting in prison still suffering, being tortured basically, the way they're treated. They would get a letter of apology from me. Their families would. I would have publicly came out and said, "I am so sorry. I did not mean." Not one word from
not only that,
not one word from Dan Newhouse.
He doubled down just a few months ago, and in committee, he made sure that there was another congressman that made a motion in committee to basically pull funding out of a bill that would support the new FBI headquarters in D.C. Dan Newhouse made sure in committee that funding stayed in there, so that went to the House floor and that new FBI building got funded. I think it was $3.5 billion of our tax dollars because of Dan Newhouse. He also voted $400 million for a vaccine tracking database.
I remember that.
It's like in the midst of everything that we got going on, they want to track. Why do they want that tracking database? So that they can control what you can do, what you can buy, what you can say, whether you can travel, all these things, whether or not you choose to inject something into your body. And that's totally up to the person if they want to do that. But to punitively punish someone, that's just totally unconstitutional.
He aligns himself with the Democrats on more of the major issues than the Republicans. Yet his ads talk about he's, Central Washington's conservative, Dan Newhouse. I, as a Christian, Jerrod, it's tough for me to be sitting here talking so negatively about a person. But I sit here and think, I would be talking about Joe Biden like this. Sometimes people say to me, well, Skip, gosh, you should be praying for him. He's just an old, feeble man. No. Yeah, is that what God did? Did God in the Bible, did he have his people go to battle and go in and pray for him first and try, and smoke peace pipes? No, he went and defeated them.
The people of Central Washington only get to influence one congressman that goes,
that's right.
And this is the one. If you remember back between 2016 and 2018 when President Trump was first elected, the Speaker of the House was Paul Ryan.
Right.
And he
Another
absolutely and completely 100% thwarted every effort possible for President Trump's policies. Knowing that President Trump is what we need in the White House, in January, why would we want to send a congressman that is even remotely, not only, he's obviously openly adversarial. Why would we want to give him another?
77% of us don't.
I know, but my point is there's a 23% that are still supporting Dan Newhouse, and my question to them is really? We need to support President Trump. Everybody, even this is why I would say to Democrats and Republicans who still support Dan Newhouse, all of us are chanting about term limits, and we fully believe in term limits. Well, guess what? Our framers gave us term limits for the House. It's an election every 2 years.
That's right.
Dan Newhouse has spent his life in politics, and he has almost nothing to prove for it except for renaming a post office. It's time for us to term limit him.
Well, and to show that at this point, between him and his wife, who's a high-paid lobbyist, they're now multi-millionaires because of politics. That's wrong. That's wrong.
I'm told that they have a beautiful beach house in Florida, so they're going to do fine.
After all the things we've just talked about. And, you know, if anybody ever wants to talk to me about it or talk to Jerrod, of course you can get a hold of us. But I don't understand. I do not understand. Just like I couldn't understand how a conservative, a Christian person with the Holy Spirit of the living God in them could vote for Democrats right now. You watch what's going on at this Democrat National Convention. Right. I don't understand how a Christian could vote for a Democrat. I also don't understand, fellow Christian out there, how you could vote for Dan Newhouse. Knowing now, if you didn't know all these other things, other than the impeachment vote, which is a lot of people, it's all they really know, you know, I don't understand it. So hopefully you'll rethink that vote and vote for this man in November. I mentioned the DNC. Heard this morning on Charlie Kirk. Everybody loves Charlie Kirk, right? Planned Parenthood has an abortion van outside of the Democratic National Convention right there, and they're encouraging their attendees to go out and get their abortions. So far, the number is 26. 26 Democrat females, obviously, you know, attendees at the convention. 26 have got their free abortions, and they're celebrating it. They want to have 100 free and healthy, safe abortions by Thursday, the end of the session.
That's terrible.
So they're up to 26. So we got a party that is celebrating death. Come out, let's kill your babies right during the convention, and they're celebrating it from the podium. They're talking about it. They're, like I say, the running total is 26 abortions since Monday.
Yeah.
They're shooting for 100, so that's their goal, is to see if they can have 100 abortions right during the Democrat National Committee. How Christian could you vote for Democrats? How?
Yeah, it's disturbing. It's beyond disturbing. I don't even. It's really sad. And the fact, I mean, it's one thing that they're doing. It's another thing that they're just openly celebrating it. You know, it reminds me of the New York State Legislature years ago when they voted to basically allow late-term abortions, so you can have an abortion up to your last minute of pregnancy, and the state legislature cheered after they passed that vote.
I remember that.
So just evil.
So it is. So we know now clearly where Dan Newhouse stands on these issues.
Which, by the way, let's leave that on. Let's give people some hope. If you read Luke, read Luke 10, Jesus clearly gives us the authority to do two things. He sent out 72 before him to prepare a way for his ministry. I believe that is a calling for all of us. He said he gave him the ability to heal the sick and to cast out demons. And most of that stuff we don't allow talking about in our churches today. But I believe God's given us the ability to heal each other, to pray for each other. If you read the book of James, it clearly says, and then also to cast out demons. And I think most people are like, well, we'll talk about healing, but I don't know about that demon thing. It's like, how else do you define what's going on in our country? I mean, you can talk to people square in the face who are clearly either just absolutely lost their minds or they're possessed with something. And we need to pray for them. Or both. We should be praying for the people at the DNC. Those are our fellow Americans who are, for all we know, are under the influence of Satan.
Oh, have to.
You know, we got to pray for those people. And so that's my encouragement to everybody. What can you do? You can pray for those people.
Yep, that's exactly right. And in the meantime, try to defeat them while they're standing for the,
but the point is, elections are temporary, right? The results of elections are temporary. A revival in America, a return to biblical morality in America would be permanent. That's our hope. And that's another thing we ought to be praying for.
Change their hearts.
Yeah, we gotta elect good people. We need to see that. But if we truly want to see change, you know, long-term change in America, we need to see people return to God.
You know, we have a few minutes left, so you're exactly right. I agree with you, and I want you to maybe just, you know, tell us why to vote for you. We certainly know why we should not vote for Dan Newhouse. I mean, I didn't get on my soapbox too much, but tell us why. You know, what are some of the main things that make you tick and that you want to see change or you want to accomplish in DC?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the big thing is I'm just a regular guy. You know, I've done almost everything there is to do. You know, I grew up pretty rough childhood. My mom was married 5 times and I was abused as a child. Very similar story to J.D. Vance. I watched that Hillbilly Elegy. My wife got that just recently. We watched it. Served in the military honorably, went to college, 2 engineering degrees, you know, worked in that industry for a few years, then started my own company almost 30 years ago. We live in the middle of an ag community.
You were a
Prosser.
NASCAR driver?
Yeah, former NASCAR driver. Lived my dreams.
Yeah.
Homeschooled our 3 kids, which were an incredible blessing, and they're great. They're grown now, so it gives Nikki and I some flexibility on what we want to do. I don't see this as an opportunity for Jerrod Sessler. I really don't care about my name on a door or a wall or a plaque or in the history books. I've already done the greatest thing that I'm going to do in my life, and that was raise 3 amazing kids and marry and stay married to Nikki for 28 years. There's nothing greater than that I'm ever going to do. But I can take all of my successes, which are outstripped by all of my failures that I've learned from every single one, and I can apply that knowledge and put it to use for the American people. And I think that we're in a spot right now where we need people who are smart enough to be able to understand the structure of how America is supposed to work and why there are, for example, amendments to the Constitution, starting with the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th Amendments, which were not good for America, and they never have been. And so we need to see people that can see into the structure of how this country is operating and start to inform people as to how it needs to change and what we need to do to win again. As far as the vote by vote stuff, I mean, obviously I'll be better than Dan Newhouse. Immeasurably, I've been endorsed by the House Freedom Caucus, which is basically 10% of Congress, which is the most conservative folks that are there, that they score 95 plus, some of them 100% on the Liberty scores for America. And so, those are kind of the big reasons. I think the big thing that we need is we need people to go beyond voting. I mean, we have a good grassroots movement, but I'm not trying to win an election. I'm trying to save our country.
Amen,
and we're not going to be able to do that if we don't have really strong engagement. Now, I'm excited about the size of the volunteer team that we have, but we need more because this is not going to stop with this election. I want to see Washington State turn red again, and we have got a plan. We've got technology. We have systems, and I have a vision for how we can do that. But it's going to take a lot of us standing up and being part of it. And so I want to encourage people to get involved, to volunteer and support my team and start to see what we're doing on the inside. And obviously donate. We need funds because Dan Newhouse has got a lot of funds. Pray against the vile that is coming because he is ruthless with his opponents. I mean, the things that he says and the things he does. I mean, we don't even know what he's going to say about me. Right. But so anyway, that's what we need. And then be involved. Plan on being involved in my team to help take Washington State back.
And you need money.
We need money.
You need money because again, you're going against an incumbent, established, swamp.
Yeah, and it's not just
he's got a ton of money.
It's not just his money. It's not just his campaign's money. But just yesterday, we got notice that there's an independent expenditure of $100,000 coming for this next couple weeks in media that is either going to help Dan Newhouse or it's going to go against me. So those are independent PACs, these super PACs. And he could have $1 million or more. He could have a couple $1 million come in from independent expenditures that want to keep, it's sort of the Kevin McCarthy wing of the Republican Party, the Paul Ryan sort of folks. They want to make sure that they hold on to that, those establishment seats. But
so
the biggest
thing,
thing is right there.
Pray and act. Pray and act, The
book of James.
And we only got a minute or so to go. As much as I love Donald Trump. I'm just going to encourage our viewers to pray and act, like Jerrod just said. Money. I just sent him a check last week, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Encourage everybody to vote for him. Talk to one person. Do what I do. Bring it up. Did you vote for Tiffany? Well, of course you're going to vote for Jerrod now. Talk to people about Dan Newhouse. Let them know some of these other votes he has taken that they might not know. And Jerrod, God bless you. We're going to be praying and acting.
Amen.
And come November, hopefully, this is a halftime celebration. You got a 20-point lead. Basketball game, we're up by 20 at halftime.
Yeah.
But it's not
Let's
over.
carry it through.
So we keep
Thank
working
you.
hard.
I appreciate it.
And God bless you. And God bless all of you. And thank you for joining us for a Christian Viewpoint.